Yep, thank you, Mayor. Always appreciate this opportunity and like to start off with highlighting the work of our staff. So today I want to start off by recognizing Walter Lynn. Many of you know Walter. He's Deputy Director in Public Works that oversees fleet, facilities, and the radio division in Public Works. This has been an extremely busy time for all of our staff, but certainly our facility staff in particular. Some of the things that Walter has been involved with has been quite amazing. First of all, the role of securing PPE for our city employees, which in the beginning especially was not easy. Walter was involved with partnering with local breweries to manufacture needed hand sanitizer. He was involved with setting up the COVID-19 testing sites. He was involved with setting up temporary shelters for our unhoused community. Him and his team have been involved with modifying work spaces and all the cleaning protocols to keep all of our city facilities safe and our employees safe. He's been involved with setting up these virtual meetings, and he's been running the EOC logistics branch in the EOC. So and if you guys know Walter, he's a very quiet leader, but really with an unparalleled work ethic, and just really appreciate everything that Walter has done for our city and our community. Next, I want to highlight the work of our housing grants management team. This team, every spring is actually a very busy time for this spring as they develop and negotiate contracts with local partners to provide critical services for our unhoused population. In April, the first round of federal funding came to assist the city in response to COVID, and the team had to really hustle to negotiate and develop 12 new contracts to help our San Jose community with things like rental assistance, sheltering the homeless, food access, and some small business grants. And so, as I mentioned, this is normally already a very busy time for them, but they've been able to do all of this and really being able to meet the needs of our community in a very desperate time. So just want to thank them all. And this includes Robert and Lynn, April, Renee, Gabriel, Warda, Teresa, and Shirley under the leadership of Kristen, Reagan, and Jackie. But thank you very much to our Housing Grants Management team. So now we'll get into the updates. You'll hear the EOC update from Lee. It will include a brief update on our fire containment and evacuation center work that we did, and you'll also hear from Chief Sapien on this. We'll also hear from Jill and John on childcare. And then we'll hear from Kim and Jennifer Loving on our economic recovery plan. And then we will have also fire department staff, Robert and Reggie and Hector, I believe, on update on our status on fire inspections. So I'll pass it off to Lee.
Thank you, Dave. On behalf of Kip Harkness and I'll be starting us off today. Before we proceed with the COVID-19 update, however, we did want to update on the fire that we had this past week. The fire department was in a lead role, and the Emergency Operations Center was in a support role. So to go over the details and summary of that event, I would first hand it off to Chief Sapien.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Lee. Robert Sapien, Fire Chief here. So yes, indeed, on Thursday afternoon, June 4th, at about 5:50 p.m., our Fire Communications Center began receiving reports of a fire in the hills near Colleen and Chesbro Drive. Our engine 12, which is our first new engine out there, arrived and quickly surmised that there was more than one fire start in that area and called for additional resources. That little area of town, one side is Blossom Valley and the other side gets into the Almaden Valley Greystone area. It can be a challenging area to fight fire. There's some high voltage lines that run right across the ridge on top. There's a canal on the Blossom side that makes it hard to access from that side of the hill where the fire started. And then there's, of course, homes nearby in all surrounding areas. So based upon access and topography challenges, additional resources were required, and ultimately assistance from agencies within our operational area, including CAL FIRE, Palo Alto Fire, Sunnyvale Public Safety, Santa Clara City Fire, Santa Clara County, Gilroy, and South County Fire Resources helped us out. And in fact, later on, as we asked for the final strike teams, Santa Cruz Resources were here as well. Just before 8 o'clock that evening, the incident commander ordered the evacuation of the Pfeiffer Ranch and Greystone neighborhoods. This was as the fire moved southward over the hill. Very quickly, our police department mobilized to alert our residents of the evacuation, and our activated EOC helped us out by providing an alert SCC notification to residents as well. We selected the Almaden Community Center as the shelter for those evacuees. And as you see in the photo there, staff were absolutely remarkable in standing up the shelter. They were prepared to have a COVID-safe environment for the evacuees. They very quickly provided basic supplies, water and food, and they were fantastic out there for us. Residents, fortunately, were allowed to return home within about 2 hours of the evacuation order. San Jose and CAL FIRE crews remained at the scene all the way through Sunday, making sure that there were no more remaining hotspots. And they did some mopping up of some fire retardant as well on some of the residents. In the end, it was 125 acres of vegetation. Fortunately, there was no home damage or loss, and I haven't received any reports of injuries. As far as fire cause goes, the initial presentation that we saw was suspicious, and very soon after we arrived, an arrest was made. The fire department, arson unit, and police department remain engaged on that investigation. Before I go back to Lee, I just want to express my sincere appreciation to our dispatchers at our Fire Communications Center, all of our responding crews led by Incident Commander Battalion Chief Dave Barnett, our CAL FIRE partners led by Santa Clara Unit Chief Jake Hess, and especially the air resources that they provided to help us stop the fire as it progressed southward. And all of the other agencies that helped. I also want to thank our police department, county sheriff, our EOC, and Parks and Recreation for their help in the evacuation process. And finally, for our residents out there who were very calm, cooperative, and patient with us as we were in their neighborhood. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Chief. You did a good job highlighting all of that, so I won't go into too much more detail other than to say I did want to thank Tiffany Dong and her team at the Almaden Community Center. That is a food distribution site, and they had been feeding people all day long, and they had the entire evacuation center set up within a matter of minutes and socially distanced protocols in place. And you can't see it because of their masks, but they continue to have a smile on their face and really enjoyed the interaction with the residents, making sure that all of the kids felt safe and that the city was on top of it. So thank you to her and her team and John Cicerelli. This past week in the Emergency Operations Center had a major focus on planning, and specifically planning around our stages 6 through 10 that we've identified to you in the past. And this has really included deep dives into us continuing to unpack the continuity of operations plan that we built as we stepped into this crisis, as well as more detailed conversations around community and economic recovery. So you'll hear a little bit of the economic recovery side today from Kim. While these are still in development, in the coming days, we'll be finalizing parts of this for council discussion, and we will bring these forward as part of 3.1 or separate agenda items in the near future. And with that, I'd like to hand it off to John Cicerelli and Jill Bourne to go over childcare and our summer recreation programs.
Hi, sorry, technical difficulties. So John and I will give you an overview of the planning that's been done through the Child Care Branch and in partnership with PRNS to get us ready to transition to summer for our kids. Next slide. Thanks. So just a little bit of an overview of the employee childcare that's been provided by the EOC to date. In the category of 0 to 5-year-olds, we have served 5 employee families over this period. There were 12 children served regularly and 45 sessions of care. And we engaged with 5 private providers through our partner network, including First 5 as a convener. In the category of our 6 to 12-year-olds, as you know, we provided childcare at city sites through our wonderful Parks Department, PRNS Department. We had 18 employee families served for a total of 30 children. There were 49 individual sessions of care, and there were 42 employees supported care through the program. Next. So moving on to summer, we're currently working on a strategy for our 0 to 5-year-olds. As the council knows, we have a very robust early care network in the city, but that network has faced a lot of challenges during this period, and we're looking at moving forward together to create a system of care that works for all of our families and all of our providers and the city. So we're working with First 5, with the County Office of Education, YMCA. There is a group that's come together to promote universal access preschool, as well as our longstanding partners, Somos Mayfair and others. Our target transition is for July 6th or early July. So we're working on it throughout this month. And we are planning to utilize this process also to update and revisit the City Council priority that we've been working on over the past year, which was to increase the number of permanent childcare and early education slots in the city, especially for low-income families. And part of that project was an assessment of city facilities for the addition of childcare and preschool that was underway prior to the coronavirus pandemic, and we will be revisiting that project. So moving on to our 5 to 12-year-olds. John, are you on?
I am. Thank you, Jill.
Great.
Hi, everyone. John Cicerelli, Director of Parks, Recreation, Neighborhood Services. So we separated this presentation this way because we do want to distinguish between childcare, which is that first group that Jill just talked about, and then summer camp, which is the group I'm going to talk about, and that serves kids from ages 5 to 12. And so just like the chief and Lee were mentioning with the shelter for the evacuation the other day, our staff has really gotten used to figuring out how to space people out and keep them safe when they're in our spaces and in the community centers. So we've had a lot of practice with this, thankfully. And so we've stood up the summer camp for 8 weeks. Normally it would have been 9 weeks. It actually would have normally started this week, but we needed the extra week to figure out a few things. So what we're going to be offering is 2 4-week sessions. And the reason for that is, at least up until Friday, the orders from the county said that we could have kids in these groups with up to 12 kids in each group. And then whatever adult supervision there was, those people had to stay with those groups through the process, and you couldn't switch anybody out. So kids can't go into other classes with other kids, and they had to stay together for a 4-week period before they could switch up. Now that got changed a little bit on Friday with the orders, and that now takes that down to only 3 weeks in groups. But by then we had already set up all the registration through our ActiveNet online services and had gone through a lot of process. So we're just going to stick with the 2 4-week camp program to stay in compliance with the health orders. This year we are going to be doing some in libraries. There's a couple community centers that have been repurposed to help with homelessness. One is Camden and the other is Bascom. So those 2 we're not registering for, but we picked up some extra capacity And the libraries, just for your information, will be Berryessa Library, Cambrian, Evergreen, Pearl, Village Square, and West Valley. We're also doing outdoor camps like we normally would at Alum Rock and Emma Prush and Almaden Lake Park and the zoo. We're also going to do an outdoor camp at Welch. So we've got a lot of camps in a lot of places. Because we have to keep these small groups of kids together, it does mean we use up most of the available space in our community centers when we are doing it. We have a lot of social distancing requirements we have to follow. We've actually been doing all that training. We've trained more than 200 of our employees on that this week. Everything from checking in and doing the health screen, just like you do if you were to go to City Hall, to wearing masks, to how often the bathrooms have to be cleaned, et cetera. So all of that's been sorted through. We have a 12-page procedural manual outlining all the very different things we have to do that we worked on with our safety unit in the EOC. So we feel pretty confident that we can do this and maintain compliance with the county orders. We are going to charge for summer camp like we normally would. There will be scholarships available for families in need like there normally would. We can move on to the next slide. The pricing will be slightly reduced this year, mainly in most camps, mainly because all of our camps, usually each week, we would take the kids on a trip. So for example, we'd run a bus and take them all to the water park or something like that for a day. We can't do those kind of things, so that eliminates some expense. But then on the cost side, some of the costs went up because now our staffing ratios are down to about 1 adult to 6 kids, and normally it'd be more like 1 to 10. So that creates more expense. On this slide, you can see we're starting next Monday. And I'm going to ask for your help in advance. We're preparing a package for you as a council to share broadly that will be available to you tomorrow. Hold on, I think we got to mute. There we go. That we'll be getting out to your offices tomorrow that we hope you can share with everybody. Registration has opened. We have a capacity under this model of 768 kids. So if you're really good with quick math and you can divide that by 12, it equals 64 different classes. Some will be multiples at one location, and some will be just one group of 12 at one location. We did create a priority. We initially opened last week registration. We saved 100 slots for city employees who may need it. So they had a first shot at registering. We actually only got about a handful of city employees that took advantage of it. Then we opened up to all the people who in the past have shown us a need for scholarships or have used our scholarships or have asked for scholarships. So we gave those folks the next opportunity to fill up. And then as of Monday, yesterday, we opened up to anybody in the city who wants to register. And that could still be people who have scholarship needs. That still could be city employees. But we gave those two groups sort of the first shot at it. And I think that's about it. And we'll certainly be around for questions at the end. Thanks, Kip.
So next, I think we have Kim and Jennifer.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Kim Wallish, Deputy City Manager. As you know, since March, we've been in emergency response mode and prioritized support for our most at-risk residents. And you've been receiving updates on the various elements of this support, such as food and necessities, emergency shelter, digital inclusion, the virtual local assistance center, emergency care. So today we have brought back an update from Jennifer Loving, who is the CEO of Destination Home, about the COVID-19 Relief Fund, which is really a centerpiece of emergency support. And after Jennifer provides her update, then I'm going to share some highlights of the emergency support that we've been providing from the EOC to small businesses and workers, and some preliminary thoughts about the Office of Economic Development's focus as we prepare to transition now from the initial emergency response to the community and economic recovery phase. It's my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Loving, CEO of Destination Home.
Thanks, Kim. Hi, everybody. We can go to the first slide. So you might remember, I think it was one of the last council meetings we had together in person where we talked about the need to start a COVID relief fund. We launched it officially on March 23rd, and the goal was to provide emergency financial assistance to low-income households whose housing stability was at risk due to COVID-19. And we saw this as an extension of our countywide homelessness prevention system, the one that we've been working, City of San Jose has been working with us at Destination Home for the last 3 years. Sacred Heart is the lead agency of our homelessness prevention system effort. We've raised about $30 million from public and private money. I'd say most of this money, 2/3 of the money at least, has been from the private sector. We did get a $5 million commitment last week from the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors. And as you all know, though, we've had an unprecedented demand for assistance. So we're breaking this work up into 3 phases. The first phase was launched on March 23rd. That was the initial capacity of the 4,500 applications. And then on March 22nd, we launched phase 2. But if we go to the next slide, let's talk a little bit first about phase 1. So phase 1 ended up being almost $11 million in direct cash assistance to approximately 4,000 low-income households. You can see the pie chart shows the geographical spread countywide of who received assistance. And then on the right-hand side are the partners that helped us get that cash into people's hands. So most of those organizations are part of our existing homelessness prevention system. We really were trying to move as quickly as possible to be able to support families. And so that was phase 1. So we go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So phase 2 gave us a minute to take stock. Couple things we learned between March and now was who was going to be eligible for federal stimulus. As we know, not everyone was entitled to either get stimulus or unemployment insurance. And so we really wanted to tailor that effort to families, undocumented families, mixed status families, but also developmentally disabled homeless folks and others who are unable to access that money. One of the things that we did, and we have to give such tremendous our gratitude to Zulma Maciel, who helped us bring together a lot of leaders from the undocumented and immigrant community leaders and advocates and activists who sat with us over a period of a couple of weeks and really helped us structure how this phase 2 should be distributed. And that actually included our partners serving about 300 families that would be eligible for this money. And so incorporating the lived experience of the people who need this money into the second phase of the program allowed us to tweak. So what that means is one of the things that they said was very important was they wanted to work with people that they already know and trust, communities that they're already have relationships with. And so we decided to expand how we were partnering to open what we called a grassroots grantee approach, which basically meant that for any local organization that is serving families that would be eligible for this funding, they could just apply directly to Destination Home, and we would give them a grant, including the cost to administer the resources to be able to help the families that they're already working with. So that has ended up being, we got 50 what we're calling grassroots organizations, and that list is on our website if folks are interested, or I can send that to you. But it's really a great list of 50 different partners all throughout the county that are really on the ground working with folks. And that was about $1.7 million. And those organizations have already been put under an MOU, and we've already distributed the funding to those organizations so that they can in turn distribute that cash to families. The other component of this was the interest list that continued to grow well past those first 4,000 names. It's up over 21,000 names have really put themselves on the list saying that they need help. And so there's another 20 organizations in the community that are part of the effort that is being led by our partners at Sacred Heart, which is basically going through the contact list, contacting folks and reaching out. And so far, just in a couple of weeks, we've already contacted 9,000 of those households on the interest list. And there are 2,200 applications that are in motion so far. Next slide, please. So what happens next? So we are going to serve as many people as we can in the second phase. But as we all know, with the eviction moratorium will be coming to a close. There has been no real indication that federal rent relief is on its way. We know that the need in our community is only continuing to grow. And so that is causing us at Destination Home to think about what phase 3 means, what resilience and recovery will look like. We know for some families, this short-term amount of money will be enough to patch through, but for a whole lot of other folks, this is a precipice into homelessness. And so phase 3 looks like we are returning back to what we do year round, which is a more sustained, deeper commitment around preventing families from entering into homelessness. Our plan before COVID was we thought we would serve 1,500 families this whole year under this program, as we've talked about, right? That number has been completely, it's off the charts already. We don't know what we'll be facing, but we're pretty sure that 1,500 is going to be pretty inadequate. So, and that will depend on the resources that we're able to secure and to be able to keep assisting families from losing their homes. So I'll pause there in case folks have questions.
Actually, why don't we go all the way through and we'll come back to you, Jen, for questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I know from interacting with many of the smallest businesses and unemployed residents the last few months, our staff have really felt the distress in the community. I mean, to hear some of these stories is it's absolutely heartbreaking. And it's really motivated our staff to work very intensely the last 3 months to really try new approaches to reach and support the smallest of our small businesses and to get that critical benefit information out to our unemployed residents. So what I want to do first is just give you some highlights of our emergency response to small business and workers. We've done so much, and these are some of the highlights. So the first thing we've done, we've communicated and we've assisted extensively. We have done 32, we call them e-blasts, where for the first time ever, we have the ability to email to all registered businesses in San Jose. And we've done that in 4 languages on a variety of topics, of support resources to the paid sick leave requirement, to anything that they need to know. We have done a series of 10 webinars, which have just been so well attended, 1,300 small business participants. And I particularly want to point out, we've done webinars completely in Spanish, completely in Vietnamese, especially developed some new deep relationships with Vietnamese partners who are then disseminating the videos widely throughout the community so the community can watch or listen at home. We've done businesses answering their questions. That's more business outreach than we typically do in a whole year. And we've had staff ready to talk with small businesses owners in Spanish and in Vietnamese. Next slide, please. Particularly proud of the work that the team has done to identify and address gaps in micro business funding. With Jeff Ruster's leadership, we realized early on that our baby businesses, those with 5 employees or under, were particularly at risk and were not going to benefit from the traditional and the new government lending programs. So with our partner Opportunity Fund, and with support from Google and Apple, we set up the micro business working capital grants, where we are making 142 $10,000 grants each. The money, I'm pleased to announce, is going to start flowing into those business owners' accounts this week. And as you know, we did proactive outreach to the lowest income, most impacted zip codes. We required that the business owner income must be below 80% of the median income. We had very significant response from Latino and Vietnamese business owners who were able to apply online in their own language. And I can tell you right now that the 80% of the businesses that were awarded had 2 employees or less. So we're really talking about the smallest businesses, and they were in areas like restaurants, auto repair, childcare, janitorial services, hair salons. So, but we're not stopping with that. The second tool that we have put in place, seeded with the $2.5 million in community development block grant funding that this council allocated, we will be announcing by the end of the month the San Jose Revolving Loan Fund. That $2.5 million becomes $10 million revolving loan fund with a state guarantee. And again, these will provide the smaller loans, up to $25,000 each. They will target, again, certain zip codes of need. They will target women-owned enterprises. These are low-interest loans, 3 years payback, and no hard collateral. And I'm also pleased to announce that that model for the revolving loan fund that we pioneered in San Jose is going to launch the week of June 9th as a statewide small business loan fund. So this concept will, in its first phase, have $75 to $100 million in small business loans with a preference for minority-owned businesses. Kiva will be the loan administrator, and we hope to secure at least $10 million of that $100 million loan capacity for our businesses in San Jose. I just also want to mention the largest community development finance institution in the United States, and the one that serves California, is located in San Jose, the Opportunity Fund. And this has been a terrific opportunity to strengthen a terrific partnership with them, as well as with LISC, a huge national player. The third thing I want to emphasize, if you could change the slide, that we have done very proactively is provided support for unemployed residents to apply for assistance and apply for jobs. We were able to sustain Work to Future's free job services during shelter in place by quickly taking all the services online. Work to Future, of course, provides free, federally funded services to our lowest skilled residents with significant barriers. We've made all the online training, which you end up with certificates, totally free. We held our first virtual career fairs. We have our second one coming up on June 11th. We have employers like Sutter Health and Precision Manufacturing. Our team sent postcards to the 18,000 licensed hairstylists and cosmetologists in San Jose, again, in 3 languages, making sure that even if, because they were self-employed, that they knew they could apply for state unemployment and other benefits. We've reached 150,000 residents via text message in partnership with Gardner Health Services about the state's direct relief assistance for immigrants funds. And last, we've managed to transition to sustain the 6th year of the San Jose Works paid work experience for young adults. 90% of those young adults are of color, 75% of them from the East Side Union School District. So we're happy that we're able to sustain that for the summer. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, we've really benefited from having additional focused business response staff in the Emergency Operations Center to do all this intense work the last 3 months. The chart here shows the staffing of the city's Office of Economic Development on the left as of January. You can see when the Office of Economic Development moved into the Emergency Operations Center, we were able to bring staff from other departments to help with our small business outreach and our business response. But of course, as we transition now to other work and to the recovery, we will be going back to our core of about 10 Office of Economic Development staff. So in thinking about recovery, there's so much that we don't control, and our team is so small. So we need to focus on what is it that we can really influence and what is really the most important work. Next slide, please. And so what we believe is that to have an equitable recovery, the city's Office of Economic Development must continue to prioritize the smallest of our small businesses and the most impacted workers and places. So we intend to shift staff resources to the small businesses, workers, and communities that need help the most. Now, you can see on this chart here, if we read it left to right, on the left is that work of strong economic foundation, which we will have always done and which we will continue to do. We need to have strong driving industries. We need to support development and construction. But we are explicitly now adding these other two circles. The importance of providing stability and opportunity and prosperity through our focused work with small business, through reemployment and training, and through a particular emphasis on getting our lowest income, lowest skilled residents into pathways to middle wage occupations. And here I need to emphasize that this work needs to stay tightly connected to the sustained safety net response of our Emergency Operations Center and our broader community, because we know that success in economic development hinges on careful alignment with childcare, transportation, housing, food assistance, all those important elements, housing of the resident safety net. And then third, as you can see here, we intend to have an emphasis on the particular places in San Jose where our work in combination with community partners can help not just recover, but become much more vital commercial districts. Next slide, please. So as I said, we will continue to prioritize small business, most impacted workers and places, and working towards stability, opportunity, and prosperity. And we are proposing 4 how principles for how we do this. The first, as I just said, is prioritizing the most impacted and most vulnerable. But by this we mean not just impacted by COVID, but focusing on areas that have historically had higher poverty rates, lower educational attainment, and have been at higher risk for displacement and predatory lending, and were redlined in the past. Second, we will take a data-based approach, disaggregating data by race and place. This will help us determine where we focus our outreach and where we focus our work effort, just like we've done the last 3 months in the EOC, and also how we'll measure success. If important tools and data don't exist, we'll try to address that gap. Third, we will engage and align with community and bolster our partners. I think you can see our very small staff. We have 70,000 businesses here, 170 square miles of city. It's critically important that we partner with organizations on the ground in community who can deliver services and support to small businesses and unemployed workers. And that we take the kind of community-informed model that we used last year with the small business anti-displacement strategy developed with the Alum Rock small business owners and community. And that went through a GARE-style kind of equity review, and we learned a lot. And then last, we need to pursue external resources well beyond city funding to scale impact. So this includes allocations of the CARES coronavirus relief funding that can support small business and reemployment services, including for undocumented residents. But I also want to be clear, it includes a new opportunity to apply for EDA funding under the CARES Act for a multi-year program. The next slide, please. So there is opportunity to compete nationally for EDA funding that's available to mitigate the impacts of the COVID-induced recession. These funds are available on a first-come, first-served basis. We believe that we can use those 4 principles to focus on the COVID-impacted, historically underserved, and disadvantaged neighborhoods and commercial corridors, and do 3 things in partnership with community partners. Expand assistance resources for small businesses, connect impacted residents with job opportunities, training, and better career pathways, and then strengthen and supplement the local business associations and community organizations working on the ground to do this work in community. And some examples of areas that we could focus on are areas like Alum Rock, East Santa Clara, Monterey Corridor, Story Road between Center and King, those kinds of important commercial corridors. So last, I just want to also, if you could change the slide, please, communicate that we will be doing the city-specific work in the context of some important and complementary economic recovery efforts that are taking place. The mayor has launched the Silicon Valley Recovery Roundtable, which has resources and talent representing 2+ counties. Councilmember Peralez has launched the Greater Downtown Task Force, which is an important focus on downtown. Councilmember Carrasco has launched the Health and Racial Equity Task Force, which is also going to be looking at issues of economic reopening and recovery. And we're in communication with the county and Catholic Charities about a very interesting Bridge to Recovery initiative, which will focus on systemic improvements to safety net and workforce development systems. So I just want to end then by emphasizing that this is just our initial thinking. It will certainly benefit from more internal and community review. In emergency response mode, our team has been working at such a frenzied pace, doing what needs to be done, trying ways to reach and provide support. But clearly now, as we move into community and economic recovery, this work must be done in partnership with the community, with many partners, and needs to be sustained over a much longer period of time. So this is just the beginning, laying out some of our initial thoughts. Thank you for listening. We'd welcome any feedback or questions.
Thanks, Kim. And now we'll move to the fire chief and his team on fire inspections.
Thank you, Robert Sapien, Fire Chief again. Next slide, if I could. So there was a very brief interruption of inspection service from the fire department in the week of March 13th when the stage 5 level of the city's COVID response was initially announced. During that time period, we provided employees with remote work capacity, VPN connection and computers and the like, and then retooled to get started on a new phase of our approach to inspections. During the period beginning March 16th, moving towards April or through April as the county's health orders evolved, 142 inspections were completed, 130 on site, and 12 of those were video inspections. And then as of May 4th, inspections resumed entirely. And so from March 16th through April 24th, 380 plan reviews were completed. 250 of those were submitted electronically, which enabled us to work through the COVID response period. And we also were receiving mail-in plans at that time as well. And so to get our employees prepared to get back to work, we updated the prevention website to guide customers on how inspections and plan submittals would be achieved, provided safety training and personal protective equipment for our staff, and all of those appointments that had been canceled were rescheduled as the customers were ready to come back and get started again. We've also coordinated the processes with the call center as inspections were resumed. And with that, Chief Estrada will be able to tell us about more of the processing that has occurred in this time period.
Great, thank you, Chief. So, Mayor, Council, in March, when the Santa Clara County shelter-in-place order went into effect, we, as well as the other development partners, canceled inspections for those people who were scheduled. And we contacted all those customers in advance and let them know that we would be rescheduling those. And as soon as the shelter-in-place order was lifted, we would let them know we'd schedule at their convenience. And we canceled a total of 308 inspections. And as of June 5th, last week, that we've completed 224. So we rescheduled and completed 224 of those inspections. We have an additional 35 that are currently scheduled, and those will run this week and next week. And there were 49 that were deferred by customers. And so at the customer request, we are maintaining that list. We're contacting them periodically and making sure that we know when they're ready to go so that we can offer that service. Next slide, please. So fire workload can be split into two main categories for fire prevention: plan review and inspections. And you can see in the table that there are 4 disciplines: sprinkler, hazardous materials, fire life safety, and fire alarm. So for sprinkler systems, from submittal, and at the time we receive it and after intake, till the time of the engineer actually starts the review, we're sitting at approximately 5 weeks now, and that's down from months ago or over the last few months. 8 to 12 week average was that, so we've made some progress there. Additional hours have been added within their schedules, and also there are additional hours from our supervisors that have been added. So you can see that wait times for fire alarm and plan review to commence is currently sitting at 3 weeks, and inspections are actually available for fire alarm systems 1 to 4 days. And with regard to the hazardous materials and fire life safety, work can start immediately once it's received in our office and assigned to an engineer. And you can get those inspections scheduled within 1 to 2 working days. Next slide, please. So this slide is an update on our fire sprinklers capacities, and that's the number of inspections. So it shows that what we have is a 4-week of available inspections. The hours per inspection are estimated based upon the project size and complexity. And you can see that the number of hours that we have available in the first column are the number of hours that we have scheduled, and that is they are scheduled for appointment, meaning they're fully booked at the first week, and the number of inspections scheduled. So that's how many actual inspections that is. And you can see from the number of available hours, there are that number of inspections, so that based on that complexity and the type of job, you will get a variance. So some inspections do require more time. And with that, I will hand it off to Chief Williams, who will discuss our strategies for moving forward.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. The strategies for the fire department for moving forward are: 1, to hire more people. 2, we've invested in peak staffing. And again, we've looked at some time allocations and some process changes. So the department has made some progress in filling existing vacancies, including hiring 3 engineers, senior engineers, and 1 senior permit specialist just in the month of March. It is anticipated that we will hire our remaining vacancies within the coming months of associate engineers. The use of the retiree hiree program has also benefited the department by increasing capacity for plan reviews and inspections. This has allowed us and helped us in catching up on our backlog. Peak staffing. Currently, we are working towards 2 additional contractors to be added to peak staffing, and this will include both plan reviews and inspection services. We believe this will allow us to provide more efficient services and be able to review more plans with the additional staffing. Time allocation. The department has shifted personnel to balance some of the areas. So what we've done is the areas that have the highest needs, such as sprinklers, we've moved some of our engineers from alarms and hazardous materials over to review sprinklers. The department has also done some process changes. One of our process changes is the verification for customers to make sure that they're ready. What we've experienced is that we've had inspectors go out to sites and customers may not be ready, and that has been a loss in opportunity to complete an inspection. So staff has been proactively calling the customer prior to going out to do the inspection, and if the customer is not ready, then we've been rescheduling to someone who is ready for that inspection. This has helped to increase some of our efficiencies and help to reduce our backlog as well. These slots, additional slots, have been added to customers that are again ready, and it's helping to improve our unfilled, reduce our unfilled hours. All of these things have been helping us to proactively reduce the backlog, and it's employing strategies for efficiencies. and we will be happy to take questions afterwards.
So that is the end of the staff presentation. On behalf of all of the Emergency Operations Center leadership, I do want to thank everyone working in the Emergency Operations Center, as well as all of our partners with us in the field over these many weeks, specifically the last week. And with that, Dave, we'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Lee and team, and we're available for questions, Mayor and Council.